Justin Frenette here, co-founder and CEO of Him and Her, and host of the Pre-Con Recon podcast, where we talk about all things brand and marketing in the pre-construction real estate market. I invite leaders to share their knowledge and strategies for success, empowering our community to thrive now and in the future. This episode is brought to you by Him and Her, a creative agency specializing in exceptional branding for real estate and high-end consumer goods. Over the past 8 years, we've helped shape and sell over $2.5 billion in real estate projects, crafting and executing strategies that deliver extraordinary results. From successful multi-year master-planned, mixed-use communities, both high and low-rise, to transforming underperforming locations into sought-after destinations, to selling out a residential tower in just 23 minutes, we empower our partners to achieve success in any market condition. If you're looking to launch a pre-construction project and want to learn more, reach out to us at himandher.ca. I also want to give a shout out to Ryan Muncie from Urban Insights Inc., who provides a boutique service focused on strategic advice for sitting, building, and investment decisions. Ryan was one of the first guests to join me on the Pre-Con Recon podcast and is an invaluable resource you should connect with on LinkedIn. Today's guest is Jordan Taylor. Jordan is an experienced leader in real estate development, having worked with some of the top builders and firms across Ontario. He is currently the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Deco Homes, which is part of the TAC Group of companies, one of the largest private construction and development firms in the GTA. Jordan's range of experience covers sales leadership and strategy, marketing and branding, customer experience, architecture, and product design. Deco is an award-winning builder at large-scale, vibrant communities across Ontario. They are working on some of the most exciting and large-scale projects, including waterfront revitalizations, army base conversions, and various low-rise communities in the Greater Toronto Area, where they bring their truly design-forward approach to what is typically a more traditional industry. Jordan, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and excited to talk shop today.
So before we dive in, I always like to ask my guests what it is you love, but what it is you do.
Well, I think real estate development. I mean, I've been doing this since I've graduated, so I clearly must love it. I hope. I think when you get a sense of what people are purchasing and why they're purchasing it, and having that direct feedback when you see people moving into their homes and watching the full cycle of home ownership is what I think most of us would say keep us going. It's not just a transaction. It's the biggest purchase typically anyone has to make. I know that's really cliche, but I think that's what we always come back to. It's just the overall experience of witnessing a family or an individual buy such a large purchase and making that special for them. I think certainly is the most enjoyable factor of my job.
That's awesome. Well, then you talked about how you got your start right out of college. So can you tell us a bit about your journey into real estate development?
Yeah. So I actually, I'm from your kind of neck of the woods. Well, I was born in Mississauga, but grew up in Cambridge, Ontario. And so I studied international business. So I got this diploma degree program at Conestoga out in Kitchener, and I always had a passion for travel and integrating global business and global strategies. And through that program, I had an 8-month co-op, which I wasn't sure exactly which route I was going to go. Originally, I thought employee relations, so I did 4 months in employee relations down in Texas at Brinks, which is a valuable. They move valuable items all across the world. Large multinational company. And then the second 4 months, I was lucky enough to be given a shot at Aspen Ridge Homes out in Thornhill Vaughan area. Large builder, both low rise, high rise. At that time, I knew just about nothing about real estate development specifically. But I can thank them for a start, because that opened my eyes to this new world. And I went from employee relations to, there I was just interning. So I was touching a little bit of everything, but I got a taste of marketing. I got a taste of the agency where I like a taste of new home development. And from there I could go finish my last semester, and I graduated and came out of school and got hired by a small developer out in Waterloo, who then later relocated to Burlington. And, you know, like I always tell any young person, if you can find an internship or a co-op of some sort to do in high school or university, you need to test before you buy.
So true.
I wouldn't have been where I am really. I don't think I would have if I didn't. Like if I just got into a job in employee relations out of school, because I actually have a double major in operations and HR, you know, that would have completely led me down a different path. So
Well,
so
you
you know,
chose
it's
the right one, right?
I think so. I hope so. Yeah.
So you mentioned in your biography, your breadth of skills is quite broad: sales, marketing, branding, customer experience, design. How has such a broad range of those skills over your career shaped how you approach developments at Deco?
Well, it's everything. Like in our industry, everything is so intertwined. Like when you're trying to figure out affordability on the sales side, to be able to understand um, product design, architecture, what things matter, materiality. Um, it's so important. And then when you transpose that over to um, the marketing side, I've worked in organizations where sales and marketing was split up. It was two separate quasi departments, and the idea was, I mean, at Reed's I was director of sales, and there's a separate director of marketing, and I'm sure there's pros and cons for both sides, but when that same head steers both ships, and it's not like this broken telephone in a sense. I think it's so important because your sales should inform your marketing, and then your marketing will inspire the sales, right? So it's that close relationship, and and then it also speaks to the fact that I started at a small company, and the benefit of working at a small company is you get to do so much. You're so much more intertwined with um, different day-to-day tasks. You're super busy and you're super active, but like it exposes you to just so much. And I can attribute, there's a lot of advice. You get so much advice when you're young, and I remember a lot of my professors were saying, you know go after a big company because that will open up so many doors for you. And in some industries, I'm sure that works. Like if I say we're to go work for Madame right out of school, yeah, great, but I would have been doing like a very tunnel vision job. Um, Whereas I truly think that you got to expose yourself to as wide of a range of tasks as possible, and then you become this well-rounded. I call it like a Swiss Army knife um, type role where you can really do so much, and give your perspective on different things and not make decisions just blinded.
I think that's a really great point of not getting tunnel vision. Like my background was software engineering, and I was actually at BlackBerry. I joined at the peak, got an internship, which got me in part-time and then full-time. And I joined at the peak of when basically the empire collapsed. Now, the one benefit is being young, you got so much responsibility in all the different projects and work you got to do. So I can agree with you on that point that the broad range of skill set helps you later in your career. So
It's crazy. Every time I hear BlackBerry, like I almost forgot about BlackBerry, but it was such, especially being from the KW area, it was like
yeah,
it was such a pivotal part of our lives growing up. Like everyone was either working for BlackBerry or wanted to work for BlackBerry. They had offices everywhere.
yeah,
It's insane. So
it's pretty
that was a
wild.
good throwback.
So then Deco, we've obviously, him and her has had the pleasure of working with you guys on the Honeystone project. Deco really, stands out in terms of your design forward philosophy. You've got a magazine that you guys release. How often do you guys release your design magazine?
Right now we do one issue per year, but then we also do a separate issue which is just focused solely on design trends, which actually just came out yesterday. And
Amazing.
that's our predictions for the upcoming year of design, tier design.
So as a
So yeah,
design studio, we love that. We think that differentiates you. But how else does your design forward philosophy disrupt what would be the traditional development norms that your competitors are doing?
I would say our single way to sum it up is we don't like looking at what the industry has done, and we don't really look at other competitors too much to say what are they doing, we should do this, or um, we actually think this industry is quite, for lack of a better word, stale. uh, a little bit archaic when it comes to, from a marketing perspective at least. uh, there's a few firms out there that do really great work, but I would say 80%, not to discredit anyone, but it's just, rinse repeat type stuff.
Yep.
I
Rolodex
mean,
projects.
as a, yeah, as a bit of a younger firm, and as a firm that kind of believes in marketing, believes in the value of brand and experience, we look to other industries. We look to retail, we look to hospitality, and you know they're so ahead of the curve when it comes to brand and experience that that's where we want to strive for. We don't want to stay um, in this industry from a marketing brand perspective. So we try to do industry first that have proven track records in other industries, uh, but just work for us, and can enhance. At the end of the day, it should enhance the customer experience, uh, or at least attract a customer that maybe wouldn't look at us uh, intentionally. Um, and then we do it through product design. Obviously, we're trying to, there's a reality that we are a production builder, and things have to make sense um, from a constructability perspective. But there's so many ideas that we've introduced that aren't traditional per se, uh, from a design perspective, from a service perspective, and we just, when the project supports it, we try to push the envelope on design. And it doesn't always mean spending more money on design or spending more money on features, but it's, how can you be smarter, value engineer things, but while still offering superior product, or still knowing what, step one is knowing what you stand for as a firm, and not sacrificing those core beliefs. Like for us, we believe a big part of product design is window sizes. And I don't care where we're going to build, we stand by our larger windows and color coordinated windows, little things like that.
Yeah.
And yes, they cost us more money, but we think that every homeowner will see the value in that. And so we've strategically made these decisions, and and we stick by them, no matter which community we're building in.
I think those are two really great points. First, like your point about looking outside your industry, hospitality, retail. I think that's really smart. And I feel that, the attention to detail, I couldn't agree more. Like even you think about some of your favorite restaurants, I know it's kind of weird, but I judge the bathrooms. Like the really great places have really great bathrooms because why, like you don't normally put the detail into a bathroom. And if it's got a great bathroom, I bet you it's a pretty good restaurant
Well,
or retail
what's
space.
your favorite bathroom?
I don't even know the name of the place, but Aaron, my co-founder, and I were in Montreal, and we went to this tapas place downtown Montreal. It was really cool. And I went in the bathroom and I like entered another realm. They had put so much work
Yeah,
into the bathrooms. And then it was weird because it was a tapas place. And then as we came out, all of a sudden it turned into a nightclub. And there was like a red carpet out front and everything. So we didn't know what we were doing. I was like, wow, this is something else. But yeah, the bathrooms were wild. So If you got a sketchy bathroom, or even like you're saying, those attention to details on the right size windows, people fall in love with those details, and it just makes it feel, even if it's value engineered, like a custom cared about home versus just a mass produced product
And
you threw up.
we've done things like that, not only through the finished product design, but through the experience along the way. To your point, our sales offices, for example, we now have a standard protocol for our sales office to have scent, a
Yeah.
deco scent, and sound. Like
Yep.
we're really
Music.
playing up the senses because it really impacts your perception and your philosophy on the product that you're looking at. And so you walk into any of our sales offices and there's music playing, there's the deco scent
Yeah.
lightly in the air, and there's a certain level of quality and display uh, when it comes to a presentation center.
Yeah. And even like, no matter the market condition, I think the reminder, and why we've enjoyed working with you guys, is you keep that attention to detail even when the market may be slower than normal, because the reality is, good or bad conditions, you should always be putting your best brand foot forward, because every one of those touch points is going to be a decision between buying your home and the other guys.
Yeah, in fact, it's probably more important in times that are tough to focus on brand.
Yeah, which can be counterintuitive, right? You're trying to cut costs and save money and cut corners, and that can be challenging.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely one of the more challenging parts of the job.
So specifically on brand and marketing, then, how is Deco, outside of a product design forward standpoint, how is Deco standing out in this current competitive market from a branding and marketing perspective?
Well, I think we have shifted over the past couple years. So I started with Deco more or less since the first year, like just a year into they formed as a company. They're an offshoot of TAC Developments. TAC is one of, I think you mentioned, one of the one of the largest private um, construction companies in the GTA, in Ontario, potentially. And so they wanted to start a new home building arm of TAC Developments, of the TAC Group. And so the brand was formed just before I joined. But I was employee, I think, number 4, and you know, start at a very ground level. And we've been building the brand almost like block by block. And each year we look to innovate not only product but the brand as a whole, and to really find our voice in the market. Um, and a couple of years ago, we made the decision to be more authentic when it comes to brand. It goes back to, you know, if you look to what other builders do in the market, probably 90% of them are using your same old kind of stock photos of like a kid on a father's shoulders looking out at a meadow or something like that.
While walking a dog.
Yeah. And in fact, you act like when you're in the industry, I'm sure you've seen it, but you actually see the exact same photos being used, like
Yeah.
between one campaign and the next builder. And so um, we completely flipped that on its head, and I would say 90% of our content is authentic, real photos of homeowners, real photos of interiors, real photos of exteriors. And we use that. So we invest a lot in content, uh, which speaks to our magazine, which speaks to our photography. We don't just use uh, your MLS photographer. We use architectural photographers because our homes are that level. Uh, so we invest in content. We believe in authenticity, and we also believe that um, the market has shifted between or from a transaction relationship to a real human to human relationship. And that speaks to this level of authenticity. but it also speaks to just how we do business. Like 5 years ago, and some builders still do this to this day, but it's like leading up to a launch, there's no communication to their database, and it's like, okay, you want it, come get it. Where we're the opposite. We want to engage with our list. We want to give them sneak peeks. We want our sales team to have conversations with people, because it goes back to that philosophy of people are buying a
Yeah.
large purchase, and they deserve it, and they deserve a better experience.
Just a number lined up to take an order.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, unfortunately, let's be real, like when the market is hot, 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 it becomes much harder to scale that down to these one-on-one conversations. But there's ways where you can do it where it works on scale, but you're still managing these audiences. Uh, because part of our jobs is to create hype and momentum and things like that. So I would be lying if I said that there's none of that at all. But it's just finding a way to balance it so that it's still a positive customer experience and buying experience, no matter the market.
Yeah. Remembering the human in it. And then what about storytelling? It's a buzzword everybody likes to use. How do you, I think you've already hit a core of it in that you guys really invest in authentic content and not stock photography. What other ways do you incorporate kind of a storytelling element into your projects? And is that present in all project sizes or more important on your larger, more complex projects?
No, it's important for every project, every community, no matter where it is, to have a story. I mean, Honeystone is probably a good example that you can obviously vouch for. But we were very it's a project in West Brampton, and you know maybe some other builders would have taken that and just uh, went with a more basic campaign, and we turned on its head and said, what is the significance of the site, of this location, of its past, of its future. Uh, and there's a very direct and intentional meaning behind the brand. And it played out through the brand assets, through the brochure, through the site plan, uh, through the visuals. Like there's a very uh, intentional way that we present and spoke, and we define the language. Uh, and I think part of that was we saw the market changing to a more end user market, and so we wanted to be a bit more familiar and soft with people rather than transactional. Um,
And even like timing wise, when you talk about like a cohesiveness of the brand, how early do you like to start the brand process? There's all the way from, like you mentioned, where you've got the traditional Rolodex, it's architected, it's designed, hey, marketing agency, give me a name and a logo and let's go, to early stages. Do you brand it and figure out your demographics so that can inform your architectural amenity design? Where on that scale would you guys live as a developer?
yeah, like the idea is for the low rise stuff, at least. We're getting into high rise. High rise is obviously a different beast of a timeline, but
Yeah.
for the low rise stuff, we're traditionally coming up with a branding campaign, or at least a branded name, about 12 months before sales target launch.
Yeah.
Uh, Sales target launch is obviously determined by your service date and your building permit date. You work backwards from there. So, yeah, I would say roughly it's 12 months, and that ideally would happen prior to architecture and design. Um, that way you can define your demographic, your target market, and then you're designing or pulling designs based off of who you think is buying here, obviously. Uh, and then obviously your designs reflect that. Uh, your elevations, your colors, or reflect all of that. So, Honeystone, to go back to that, just to give examples, is we came up with this soft approach. We came up with the name. We came up with the brand. We determined that it was more end user. So that when you look at the renderings, which was done after the fact, our renderings have bikes in the driveways and chalk on the chalk on the driveways to depict this family lifestyle,
Yes.
which, not many builders will go that level of detail, but it speaks and works as a whole rather than individual parts.
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously, we're an external vendor. You guys use third-party vendors for many of your projects. We see all shapes and sizes, developers who have a fully internal team, mixed internal, external, fully external. What's, in your opinion, the pros and cons of an internal team versus bringing in partner expertise on projects?
Yeah, I mean, so 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 the an internal team is good at executing on something that's been developed, in my opinion. It takes a lot of brain energy to come up with a campaign
Mhm.
and a look and a feel and iterate on that, as I'm sure you can acknowledge. Uh, and we also want to make sure that it's the best of the best. And it's really hard to find internal staff that can kind of do it all, right? Like, so when you're building out a website, you need someone that understands design, front end design, and back end design. Is that, if that's two separate people? Okay, well, your team is getting quite large. Whereas using agencies like yourselves, you're experts in your own craft. So you don't need someone that's an expert in digital ads and front end development and coding and back end development. Like, the agency, the value add of the agency is you bring that expertise to the table. Uh, but if it's a matter of, so I see a bit of a quasi hybrid model working out well for firms of a certain size. Uh, uh, if if you're a smaller firm, the ups and downs of the market won't necessarily warrant this a hybrid or necessarily an internal model, and so it makes most sense, in my opinion, to rely on external vendors, consultants.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, yeah, you guys are the experts. Like, digital marketing is changing, I would say, day by day at this point. Like, the scale of change is just insane. Especially now everything's being accelerated with AI
Yeah. It's
and
very well.
language models, and it's almost impossible to keep up with this
Even
stuff.
the sheer amount of content people are getting hit with is pretty wild. And so being able to stand out from that noise is getting harder and harder.
And people's attention, like, you know, everybody I've spoken to has acknowledged the fact that their attention span is so short. Like, when's the last time you've read, like, you get a news article or a publication of some sort or new study findings? Everyone reads the headline.
Yeah.
How many people read the body, right?
Yeah.
And, like, I've had to physically, train myself to acknowledge the fact that we are now being designed and groomed to only get bite-sized information. Like, I'm trying to, like, physically force myself to read the details, because you get completely swindled if you're relying on headlines only. And that's I mean, it's a whole other conversation, but that's why our world has become so polarized in a way.
Yeah.
And it's because of the internet and the effects of social media, effects of micro news stories. It's it's awful in a way.
And I think that just shows the importance of taking the time to try and build that relationship with your leads and your customers to have that trust that what you're communicating is real and authentic.
Yeah, authenticity is key, and you're even seeing authenticity in video marketing. Like, I think gone are the days where it's a very polished video talking about a new community. Like, the next generation is looking at content through the lens of, TikTok style videos where it's, say, a person talking about a community, and the text kind of popping up on screen,
Yeah.
and like their authentic opinion of something rather than the builder's opinion of something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the way people are designed. Like, look at all the restaurant recommendations that I'm sure you've seen. Like,
Yeah.
it's no longer about like this fancy marketing video about this new restaurant. It's like
The 10
some
second
sort
TikTok
of,
that shows a dish and like gets you hyped, and that's enough. And I
that's
need to
it.
go check that restaurant out.
That's
Even
it.
I think you see that clash the most when you go into secondary markets, which we'll get to in a second, where you have the big city developers come run big city campaigns in a secondary market, and you're just like, that doesn't connect with the regular life of secondary market individuals. You're like, it needs to be more real because that flashiness just doesn't resonate.
Yeah, yeah,
So I quick want to touch on two of your larger projects. You've got Lakeview Village, which is a waterfront revitalization, and you've got Base 31, an Army Air Base conversion in Prince Edward County. Two totally different spectrums of complexity and size. I'm curious, what makes these projects special, and what unique challenges do those two projects pose for you guys at Deco?
yeah. It's a good question because there's a lot of challenges right now, especially in the condo market. But
Yeah,
so I'll start with Lakeview Village. So Lakeview Village is our first foray into high rise. We as an organization uh, have set up have been set up to support high rise development. Uh, and so TAC Construction purchased is a partner alongside other partners in Lakeview Village, one of the majority partners in Lakeview Village, which is a 177-acre waterfront revitalization. It used to be Ontario Power Generation lands, known as the Four Sisters, these four coal stacks in Mississauga that were torn down years ago. And there's this visionary, Jim Toby, who came along and had a vision for the site. He passed away, unfortunately, but over the years, the vision became more and more real, and we purchased the site and envisioned a community that was completely mixed use, honored the land. Um, was very future forward thinking with things like uh, geothermal uh, and autonomous. We're looking at new technologies that have that can sustain a community that will be around or be really developed over the next 20, 30 years.
probably the
Uh,
size of development gives you that opportunity to explore those new
yeah,
technologies.
yeah, like we're talking, so it's 177 acres. So, master plan for about 15, 16,000 units,
Just a
multi-tower,
small project.
multi-phase. Yeah, just a few. It's like a little city. Uh, but it's got, it's not just residential. It's got an entire area dedicated to an innovation district, where we're attracting um, employers and
Yeah.
high tech jobs, industries. Um, it's got schools and parks. It's got one large park um, connecting Lakeshore down to the lake, uh, and it's got different housing forms. But yeah, essentially, there's a phase one group right now, which represents the partners, and then we brought in Tridel. Tridel has actually launched their first block, which is called Harbor Walk. So many people might be familiar with that. So
Yeah.
it's the first. So it's the only one that's gone to sales so far. So it's the first public brand. Uh, and then we're planning a 15-story tower. I guess it's not really a tower for some people, but 15-story building with some townhome products at the ground level. It fronts onto Ogden Park, which is that main park that I mentioned. Has views of the lake right down that park and to the west. Um, and it's a really exciting project because there's a lot of industry first, a lot of innovative, sustainable first. And it's just been a great partnership with our partners. Um, so we're hoping to bring that to market, market depending obviously, but we're
Yep.
just about ready to launch it. So whether it's mid to late 2025 or sometime in 2026, but we're really excited for that um,
Excellent.
new chapter in our company's history. And then similar to Lakeview Village, we've got Base 31, which is another revitalization project. So this was a military base until 1969 out in Prince Edward County, and it is a 750-acre site. So it's absolutely massive. It's a
Wow.
it's currently an active airport, the Picton Airport. So there's a big airfield uh, uh, on site, and the coolest part about the site is 70 acres of that is the old World War II training base.
Okay.
So there's a group of old barracks buildings, which some are, in great shape. Others are a little bit more uh, in need of love. But we have it after it was used as a military base. It transitioned into a business park, um, and then it was kind of just this underwhelming business park out in the county, and we purchased it again alongside a few partners. Um, but we are reinventing it into something that's not only residential, but more importantly, a world class destination. Already, we've added an outdoor food commissary with shipping containers. We have um, supported a lot of the businesses that were active on the site and brought in some new businesses that are being occupied in those barracks buildings. So it's a really cool um, kind of mixed use site. And we've converted one of the old hangars into this amazing concert venue where we've already hosted guys like the Arkells out there for a concert. A lot of big names. Every year we've got a full talent list of people that we bring out for concerts. Um, and we have events big and small, and at its core is this really cool revitalized area that has now become a destination for the county and for Ontario really. And it will eventually, our goal is to bring it into a global destination and for it to be a global model of development, because we are going to do development differently. We are looking at a lot of global communities that um, have prioritized wellness and sense of living in community rather than just plopping homes on a site because you have the land. So it's a really exciting project for us. We have some great partners there, and we are just, we're, I think, year 3 of owning the site, and the revitalization district, as we're calling it, is already established. And if you're ever in the county, please check it out because it's a really, really cool area. Uh, Really cool thing to do on an afternoon.
And there's a
Uh,
great website up currently, right? base31.ca.com.
yeah, base31.ca, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Now, Prince Edward County, secondary market, really. Is Base 31 and projects like that something Deco's going to explore? Obviously, with some of the slowdown in the major cities, we're seeing developers branch out into these secondary markets, and that's actually going to be the topic of our next Pre-Con Recon report. What's your view on mainly large city developers branching out into secondary markets?
So I guess my view and Deco's current strategy may not necessarily be aligned in this matter, because I do think secondary markets are a big factor in housing. Being from Cambridge, obviously, I've already seen that change and shift in Cambridge as a city. Uh, but Deco's current strategy is more to focus on GTA
Yeah.
and the Golden Horseshoe, uh, and that's more so just because of our uh, historic, current, and future land holdings and our relationships in those areas. Um, I mean, we do prioritize, um, and we have a a land acquisition strategy to focus on transit, focus on uh, growing areas that are supported by transit and industry and jobs. Uh, but I think, because our parent company has been around for so long and has a large volume of land holdings that will serve, my future generation almost. Uh,
Yeah.
it's more so speaks to that rather than what we think is necessary in the future per se. So I think, for newer developers or developers that are just looking to diversify their land holdings, I do certainly think that certain secondary markets are an important part, important piece of the puzzle. But I do think they have to be grounded in something. Like there's a lot of issues and things to figure out when it comes to these secondary markets. And Prince Edward County is certainly a good example of that. Right now, Prince Edward County has an issue with housing in the sense of all of the housing stock or rental stock has been converted to short term rentals. So, what does that mean? That means that families who have kids that want to buy or rent a home have to move to a place like Belleville and Kingston because there's no rental, there's no long term rental. That means that workers, like, if you're a winery out there or a restaurant out there that needs seasonal work, your seasonal workers don't have a place to live or rent because nothing is affordable. Everything is moved to short term rental. Even things like, when we did a lot of boots on the ground uh, workshops and uh, and just a lot of listening to the local market. And one of the biggest things that has come up time and time again, other than affordability, is services like doctors, places to work, doctors, grocery stores, like these modern day conveniences that when you live in a city, like I live in Toronto, and you can walk to any of. I've got like a choice of doctors and dental offices that I can walk to. But when you don't realize, you kind of take it for granted in these other areas. Um, they're fighting to get into a doctor's office, or they're having to drive 30, 45 minutes to a doctor's office. So, with this growth, you have to sustain or have to have a plan to grow simultaneously these other services. Uh, even, you know, technical things such as water and sanitary, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not as easy to just go into the secondary market and just start building.
Yeah.
And I know, there's a lot of examples of this, like Aaron, for example, uh, places like, I don't know. I mean, Stouffville used to have these kind of issues, like, these tertiary markets, uh, are susceptible to other issues.
Yeah. Now, you talked about rental there. Everything's turning short-term rental, just housing supplies in there. Obviously, on base 31, when it gets to the housing developments, there'll be houses. Are you or any of your partners exploring purpose-built rentals, which is kind of the other secondary market that's really gaining? It's been around forever, but it's really has a highlight right now.
Yeah, yeah. So we've actually set up the partnership very strategically in the sense of one of our partners is the Rockport Group, and Rockport, is specialized in uh, rental buildings. So they're we yeah part of our phase one is actually we're working on it right now is to bring to market a rental building. There's going to be multiple rental buildings throughout the site, but yeah, phase one uh, is a rental building. We think it's really important for uh, that market specifically, but just about any market right now. Um, like when you look to Europe and other places around the world, rent is just it is a completely normal, common thing to do, and there's no stigma whatsoever to it. I've got a lot of friends in Europe that are and will be lifetime renters, and there's no issue with that. Like there's absolutely no issue. Like you, especially with this lifestyle push with the younger
Yes.
generation, like a lot of people are the I call it the attainable luxury market is this emerging market that has taken over the younger generation, where they're willing to spend more on coffee, but like they're willing to spend more on daily things
Yeah,
because
experiences.
they want to live this lifestyle. Uh, and so rental kind of fits in perfectly with that lifestyle. And a lot of the rental buildings that I've been seeing are quite cool. Like
Yeah,
there's some guys that in the city that are doing some really interesting, cool rental projects. And I guess it doesn't speak to just younger people. It speaks to all demographics, I think.
yeah.
Downsizers.
Downsizers.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, one last question for you, Jordan. Looking ahead, what are some of the trends you think are going to shape the future of real estate in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think the industry as a whole needs to find ways to be more sustainable, and do their part. Like I think what a lot of people have realized is when you pass that buck down to the purchaser, unfortunately they're just not willing to pay for it. So everyone's got to kind of do their own part and find ways to reduce your carbon footprint, which we've been investigating and doing a lot of work on. I think affordability obviously is one major thing, um, but it's not so much let's build a cheaper home. It's finding unique, creative solutions and looking at other places throughout the world to design a better floor plan or look for ways to do more with your piece of land that you have. Um, Different ways of living, I think, is going to be a major trend, like co-living and living with parents, kids, for that matter. I think that's huge, in designing homes to support that. Um, and I think going back to an experience, ensuring that experience is a key part of every transaction, um, because you know the industry as a whole got a little bit uh, complacent in a way in the past few years, and so treating these buyers and treating the process as a true experience, I think it's not a trend. I think that's just something everyone's got to shift to.
They could be simple things like we just launched a project in London where it's along the riverside and it's got a path. And for the opening event, we did a little illustrated book of find the flowers and the fauna that lives on that trail. So it's a fun little adventure you can do with your kids to explore and just check off all the passport plants you found. Like there's real easy, creative ways to build that experience and show that care. So I think you
I
nailed
think
it.
that's exactly it. Like a lot of like people think that you got to spend money on ideas all the time,
Yeah.
and like you just need creative space, and you gotta think outside the box, because like a lot of things don't have to cost any money at all, for that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just re-evaluating constantly. Like we do an annual meeting every year where we're just re-evaluating our processes, homeowner feedback, and even if we make one change per year, perfect. Like
That's
you get 1% better on multiple things, and it adds up to a lot. So I think that's all that matters.
amazing. Well, we've been talking to Jordan Taylor. Jordan, for people who want to learn more about you, where can we send them?
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Jordan Taylor. It's probably 1,000 of Jordan Taylors, but find me somewhere, and yeah, happy to reach out and chat.
Amazing. Jordan, thanks so much for joining me on the Pre-Con Recon podcast brought to you by him and her. Talk
Thank
soon.
you, and thanks for him and hers great work.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Justin.
Yeah, have a great day. Thanks, Jordan.
Take care.